Helen Mak. Welcome
Hi.
to Breakfast with Bobsy.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure on this crisp, cold, beautiful January day.
Yeah.
Now, Helen, you're slightly unusual in a sense that you are one of the younger guests I've had, but not just in age, but younger in a sense that this is rather new to you.
Yeah.
Your social activism, your inspiration, the works you do are relatively new. So that makes it different and a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Yeah.
One thing I would like us to talk about is the moment that inspired you to become a social vegan. But first, I know you as Helen, who has a platform on Instagram called Social Vegan.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons you're having breakfast with me today is in a very short span of time, you've managed to inspire a lot of people. And you've been digging out these social vegans, some fully vegans, some perhaps part-time vegans.
Yeah.
But imagine most of them vegetarian, at least, heading in that direction.
Yeah.
And these are people that I don't know of, and they seem to be getting younger and younger all the time.
I know, like the youngest was like 14.
A sign of the times. So, as the curator, the inspirator, the artist, the writer behind Social Vegan, it's a pleasure having you here. And I do want to talk about all the details and nitty-gritty, but also you're a solicitor, lawyer?
Yeah.
You are, right.
Yeah.
And I know you've studied in the UK, in Denmark, in the US.
Yeah.
Denmark's interesting.
Yeah, it's really fun. I work there too, actually, part-time.
Wonderful. We can talk about all of that. But originally, you're born and raised in Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So, tell me about Social Vegan.
I started it.
Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Loving this.
Thank you.
Ticino.
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 There's no coffee in it, but it behaves like a coffee, right? It gives you that coffee moment.
Yeah, so Social Vegan started that project, not really knowing where it was heading. I became a vegan diet-wise, at least, about 1.5 years ago. Finding it really tough at the beginning because I have to eat out a lot with my colleagues, with my business partners. And I'm quite junior in my professional life, so I can't be going around asking 20 different questions every time. So I wanted to do that in the background. So I want to talk to the restaurant management, chef, owner, whoever behind the scene, and ask them to add vegan options on the menu. That's just, started as like a service for myself and for people around me who wants to try plant-based dishes but don't know where to start or can't find possible options outside. So I started it thinking that if I can change one restaurant, I'm more than happy. So.
And what was the first restaurant you had an impact on?
It's actually a Lebanese restaurant. Sarabel.
Which one?
Sarabel. It's the next generation of Sarah.
Oh, right. Yes, Zarabel, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe pronouncing it
Oh,
badly.
good. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
they're lovely. So I met Nadia.
Great people.
Yeah, really great. So I emailed them out of nowhere, and they were like, "Yes, let's do it."
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So they put a big section of vegan foods onto their menu, or
So they already have some vegan options.
Lebanese food is pretty vegan. Yeah.
But they don't label them as vegan.
right.
So I don't really know which one's vegan. And sometimes, staff may not exactly know what they put into it, the different dishes. So they added a vegan icon next to the vegan options.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And that empowered you to do more.
I know, it was like the first week of starting Social Vegan.
Nice.
Yes.
And the question I need to ask is, what was your eureka moment? What was the moment where you realized this makes perfect sense?
It is a very difficult question to answer.
Right.
I really tried to think really hard. The moment actually traced back a long time back. Because Social Vegan started basically as a love for others. And and it started from my mother. So this is going to be pretty emotional potentially.
Right.
So my mom has battled cancer for 15 years before she passed away.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
It's okay. It's the history. So, and then I think maybe 1 or 2 years before she passed away, I was really upset, and I couldn't tell her that I was upset. So there was this one day she came into the room, saw me like really sad, and I made up an excuse. And then she like pulled me into her arms, and then say like, my daughter, no matter what you do in the future, just remember, be happy.
Wow.
That was
How young were you then?
about 20, 21. So I was a pretty aggressive kid. I was really competitive. I want to demonstrate that I can do things because I want to show my mom that even though you are dealing with so much and we are dealing with so much, it didn't impact me.
Right.
I want to tell her like, your sacrifices were worth it. She sacrificed a lot for me. She didn't go do checkups when I was having exams and stuff. So I want to tell her like, I can do this. You did the right thing, Mom.
So why were you sad or angry
When
at that time?
I wasn't feeling anything.
Were you angry at life, or were you no?
I was scared.
Just scared, right? You couldn't understand why your mother was so sick and having to suffer at such a young age, right?
I really didn't think about the reasons. I was like, okay, this happened. What do I do? We were talking before this started like about death, right? That's the fear that has been with me since I was 8 years old. People didn't tell me that my mom was sick. They said that your mom had to go somewhere, and I was at the relative's house for a month, and then I was crying every day. I heard from people that something was happening. I didn't know what's happening.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
No, not with my mom. So I was a single child at the time.
Oh no.
It was really bad. I was so lonely.
Yeah.
I did not know what to do. I have no one to share that feeling with. I was having a lot of difficulties with my own mentality. Like I was touching everything 3 times because I think that our family has 3 people. I want everything to be in 3. I don't want it to be in 2.
Wow.
Yeah, that was that bad.
Oh.
Yeah. So that moment was really like, oh, okay, this is what life should be. Is that what it is? Like, I wasn't really processing that much, but as I grow older and older, it's like, okay, that's my life philosophy. Everything that I do needs to bring me happiness.
And how did that lead to veganism?
Wasn't a direct linkage. It was because towards the end of my mom's life, she was eating like this much every day. So I was like trying, because she had like renal failure, digestive system failure. I was trying to research into what gives her the most in very small volume of food. So I was reading up a lot and trying to figure out what's good for health. And then eventually, I adopted a vegan diet because of health originally.
Right.
Yeah, so I was, even after she passed away, I was still looking into how best to eat in order to live. So eventually I adopted a vegan diet. I was actually really upset at the beginning. I was thinking to myself, what if I found this earlier? Would that have helped my mom? Because that, things happen and you can't turn back time. But I was thinking to myself, I think my mom would want me to give it back. Even if it doesn't save her, maybe it'll save my friends, maybe it'll save other people. So that's where it all started actually.
So is your mum often with you when you're writing social vegan stories, and the presence of your mum's always there?
Yeah, and it's also connected to why I love stories. Because my mom is the kindest person you ever meet. She's always looking at the positive side of things, because even if things happen in the wrong way, or you think that a certain action is not justified, she will always think that something has happened in that person's life that makes him or her do certain things. She's always telling me, you need to look deeper. You need to understand why people do certain things. You need to understand what's the background of it. And that's always
Don't go judging people so quickly without knowing the story behind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
which is something you must be coming across a lot in Hong Kong, in our society, with the vegan movement, exploding, but also having the militant vegans running around, wagging their finger at everybody and everything, and pointing fingers at everyone and everything that isn't 100% vegan, and but that comes with the package, if you like. It comes with any new movement, fascinating. So your mum's a direct inspiration for Social Vegan.
Everything pretty much what I do, she's always there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. And I mean, Social Vegan, for people who don't know it, requires a lot of research and a lot of writing, right?
Yeah.
You have to write the story. You have to interview people, maybe record what they're saying. So what's the process? How do you do it? Because you're also a busy professional at the same time, right?
Yeah. It's a bit random. So I contact everyone that I think may be interested in it. It could be Instagram, it could be WhatsApp, it could be people that I met through friends. So really everyone. And as long as they're willing to share, I'm willing to do it.
Do you contact them or they contact you?
Both ways.
Both.
It's more me contacting them.
Right.
Yeah. I think people, sometimes they may not realize there's such a platform. Sometimes they feel like they don't know whether they're suitable. Whenever I contact people, I get a lot of questions saying that I'm not 100% vegan. Is that okay? Every time I tell them, you don't have to be. As long as you're interested and you want to change, or you want to share.
So my question to you now is, how do you find these people? Because it's not like they're celebrities or they're published authors, or how do you find them?
Instagram is the main source, really. People love sharing what they eat. Sometimes I read into comments of vegan eats places so that I can find who's interested in this kind of food. Sometimes I organize events and I meet people there. So,
Are you covering people outside of Hong Kong?
I cover people with a connection to Hong Kong, at least. So there could be people who are born and raised here and moved somewhere else.
Right.
But at least you need to have a connection.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've noticed in some of the profiles there's pictures of people overseas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I've counted yesterday. That's been more than 90 now. And there are a lot more sitting in my inbox.
In the inbox, waiting. Wow.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the 100th guest?
Let's see. Maybe it's you.
Maybe. We'll see. Yeah, it'll be a pleasure, actually.
Lovely, actually, now that you mention it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So, I mean, as I said in the intro, I mean, you've done all of this in a very short space of time. So, I mean, how much time do you spend on this?
A lot.
You're working late into the night, I take it?
And then
Or waking up super early to do it?
waking up earlier and earlier every day.
Because you're a full-time lawyer, right? In-house?
In-house.
Right. And, law firms, are you working with a law firm or you're an in-house lawyer for a corporation, for a company?
So I work inside a corporation.
Right.
And I work with law firms.
Right,
Sometimes,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah, it's a very different kind
Completely
of life.
different. So almost you have to wear two hats,
I
right?
know, like every day when I'm at work, I'm like, now work. And then afterwards, like, my life.
It's not like, while you're at work, you can start doing social vegan stuff, right? Because that won't be professional, I'm sure.
Yeah. But it's nice that both lives, it has a bit of a language element, it's a bit of writing element, and I love it.
And always in English, right? Have you done any stories in Chinese?
I've tried to write a little bit of Chinese sometimes at the end of the story or when I introduce a restaurant, because I know that there's some people who prefer to have a bit of Chinese, just makes them feel more familiar. So I've tried to do that, but my main language is still English.
Right.
Yeah.
And are you noticing an increase in people who are moving or are shifting towards a plant-based diet?
A lot.
Yeah. Are you noticing it with the younger generation?
The younger generation just embrace it. They're like, yeah, why not?
Why do you think that is? Why do you think the younger generation are suddenly going?
I think it's partly to do with how information spreads these days. In the past, it's really difficult because when you're really young, then your info source is like your parents. They're not having that diet. It's quite hard. You may have friends at school, but they also follow their parents because you can't go around like read everything. When you're a kid, you have schoolwork and stuff like that. But nowadays, you go onto Instagram, you have everything. So that has definitely shifted. I also think that it's just so happened that there's a trend at the moment too. Like I was told by one of the social vegan that in one of their schools there was 1 year where everyone went vegan. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the next year, most of them became meat eaters again. So it depends. Yeah, but they're definitely more open to the whole idea of eating more plants, of being environmentally friendly, of saving animals, which is quite surprising in a way because I think people are actually more disconnected with nature in the city at least. But they're all going back to embrace it. So.
Or going forwards, not going back to nature.
True,
going
true.
forwards to nature.
True.
Yeah, our language says a lot about where we're at and how we think, and often say going back to nature, but I like to say, well, no, we're going forwards to nature, because Mother Nature is always the mother.
Yeah. We're always the naughty kids running around.
We're always the naughty kids, and man, are we naughty now. We've become so naughty that our mother's in pain, you know. It's come to that extent. But I'm also very encouraged, more than encouraged, I'm very happy, I'm very optimistic, I'm very inspired to see the young generation, not just the millennials, but Gen Z and what we call Gen Zero now. Primary school kids, and I do a lot of talking at schools, and I've been talking about this subject now for a very long time in Hong Kong, and I've been feeling it not just in the last 5-6 years, but way back. Talking to a classroom or an auditorium, how many people are inspired by the message of diet change, not climate change, but also of embracing a plant-based diet. And back in the day, I mostly spoke about tree planting and environmental activism and changing all of that. But there's always been a very strong awareness amongst school kids. And I'm talking about the 90s here, going back to the mid-90s when I was giving talks in schools, and you could see it in the kids, the hunger for a cleaner environment, for making change, for being able to do something as kids that has an impact and not just be passive victims. It's always been there. And now I see it amongst the teachers and the school professionals there. How fascinated they are too. I'm not just talking to the kids, I'm talking to the headmaster, I'm talking to the teachers, so it's beautiful to see, and then now you're concurring with that
and
they're getting younger and younger.
Surprised actually, because the kids are like, okay, I'm learning new things every day. This is new, but it's also part of what I'm learning every day, right? For teachers and schoolmasters are like, what have I been doing all these years?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. They're going, whoops, where have we been for the last 30 years?
Do we still have time to change it? Oh my gosh.
Exactly, all of that.
Yeah.
And what are the challenges you're seeing with this movement, if you like? I mean, you mentioned a trend. I don't call this a trend, but I know what you mean. This is trending on social media.
Yeah.
But this is not a trend. A trend is something that will come and go.
Yeah.
This is come, and it's here to stay, because once something cracks and the light comes in, there's no going back. Once your mind's expanded with an idea, there's no going back on that.
Yeah,
but
I actually like to talk about that too.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, because some people say it's just a hype, things happen and there's a trend and everyone just follows. Is that, some people even ask me, do you think it's going to last? Is that a good thing that it's talked about as a trend and not as, a lasting change?
Yes.
But I always think that it's exactly like what you were saying. You need that crack, right?
Yeah.
You need to crack into people's minds. So sometimes it's a tool to use a trend in order to do that. But once it gets into their head, you can't unlearn it.
No going back, is there? Yeah.
So.
And inspiration can come from anywhere. I mean, we're surrounded by some beautiful books here that have inspired me, and every single book on our table now is a changer. Is deep insights into why humanity is shifting. Why humanity is awakening. Why humanity is growing and maturing. In spite of all the challenges we see on the political scene, the environmental scene, the social scenes, but underneath all of this is a rapidly, exponentially growing awakening that life is not just physical. There is a consciousness in everything, and if we tap into that, we also become conscious, and consciousness just grows and grows and grows. And we can see this in Hong Kong now, because we're specifically talking about Hong Kong, and in how more and more people are practicing yoga, or more and more people are practicing Tai Chi or Qi Kong, any esoteric practices that put you into the present. We see it with the plant-based movement. More and more restaurants, every restaurant now is putting vegetarian options on.
Quite hard though, still.
Yeah, well, it's still early days in many ways. It's still early days in many ways. Look at these wonderful kids.
You know them?
No, but they're all plant-based coming. Yeah, very soon they'll all be plant-based. It of course it's still. I mean, we've been eating meat, we've been eating meat ever since we discovered fire. But before we discovered fire, we never ate meat because it's not in our biology and our physiology to eat meat. But that's another subject. But we've been looking at the world as a physical entity. We've been looking at the world as a material reality for thousands of years now, for at least 6,000-7,000 years. So when we look at everything made out of material, nothing has spirit, nothing has consciousness, nothing has chi in it. So we have a completely different worldview. So for this to shift from a materialism worldview into a consciousness worldview, it's going to take a while. But nevertheless, I am beyond happy to see how quickly this change is happening, and you can see it in the in the generations that are coming.
I mean, information is moving a lot quicker. In the past, you really lack the tools sometimes to spread the message, but now, if you have something to share with the world, it's quite easy to do it.
At the same time, there's a lot of information out there that is misleading, not interesting, destructive, fake. So information is not knowledge, right? So it's not just because this plant-based movement is trending on social media. Because otherwise, everything else that's trending would be growing exponentially, but it's not. So people are able to discern and know what's good for them and good for the planet, right?
The younger generation actually, it's very good at that, because they know, since they've started using internet, that it's not everything is true.
Right.
They're very good at looking through that sort of situation. Whereas for people who were not born with that kind of environment, like people of my age, we had years without a computer. Sometimes it takes a bit of getting used to.
And when you were born, there was no concept of organic and environmentally friendly and sustainable and all these words that have kind of entered the vocabulary recently, right? So young kids now are being born into a world where waste is being separated, everything's being recycled, and is that organic or not organic? Is that plant-based or not, So that's a big advantage, and this is how we change.
They bring their own reusable cup everywhere, bring their own Tupperware everywhere, whereas in our generation, we didn't have any of that. We were using like foam box. Just need time to change.
Thank God for that.
I know. Thank God I know it before it's too late.
Good, and I'm so happy you're doing what you're doing, and I wish you all the best to keep doing this, and perhaps to take it deeper and wider. Do you have any potential plans of taking it beyond Instagram?
Well, I always have a website, but I'm not like a very good website designer, so that we'll see. But I think the main core right now is to get more restaurants and more cafes to sign up to this. I think I've tried to demonstrate there's a huge demand for these people, and it's just about convincing them. The vision is really to have Hong Kong as a place where you can walk into any restaurant and find 2-3 vegan options, and everyone can eat them. It's not just the vegans.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's hope
I think within the next 3 to 5 years that would happen.
Yeah.
Purely because it makes business sense. So, most restaurants operate to make money, right?
You need to make money in order to be sustainable.
But okay, let me take that further. Most restaurants operate to not just make money, but to make a lot of profits for, especially the bigger restaurants. And so for them, it's about business. So vegan and vegetarian options make a lot of business sense. So for them, it's not about, because I'm plant-based, I want to offer my customers more plant-based options. It's because, wow, look at that market, look at that growing market, which is good. So business plays a role in shifting change, and there's no harm in that at all,
Yeah, totally understood. Like, when I go and talk to restaurants, I need to use that angle to appeal to them.
Convince them.
Yeah, and it's good that all these like big names like Gordon Ramsay all started to do veganery menu, and that's also an angle that I use to convince people. So yeah. Glad to see
What are your
changes.
biggest challenges in your day-to-day social veganism?
Getting people to respond.
Right.
Yeah, it sometimes I understand when I don't know the people behind. I don't even get to that level. I may email them, I may Instagram message them, but I don't know where they are. And that's hard. And then maybe they see the message and they think, that's another random girl doing something. I don't really believe in her. So
Well, now they're going to see the face and the beauty behind social vegan, right?
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really want to make this change happen. I don't want people to say that I don't go plant-based because it's too difficult.
No.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And that I always say that practicality side of things, just leave it to us, leave it to people who are working behind the scene. Just work on changing your own mindset. Yeah, I want to take that burden off them. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And anything else you want to share?
I want to know your eureka moment.
My eureka moment. Ooh, okay. This book here has a big role in that eureka moment. It's written by the late Willis Harman,
Yeah. Eureka.
who was the head of the noetic sciences. Noetic sciences is a Greek word. Nous means mind.
Yeah.
So the sciences that studied consciousness. And now that's become a mainstream part of science. More and more scientists, physicists, biologists really starting to look at the non-physical aspect of reality and studying consciousness. And Willis Harman wrote this very simple book. You see, it's a small book.
Yeah.
It's 186 pages. But in it, and he wrote this book in 1987, 88, and in it, he explained to me why the world is shifting and why it's inevitable that we are going to shift from a materialism worldview into a consciousness worldview. In a scientific, logical, easier to understand way. And Willis Harman was a scientist first and foremost. He was an engineer. He wasn't just throwing concepts out left, right, and center, but he had a deep insight into humanity and how we've always transformed, not through guns and revolutions and bombs, but through a change of mind. So when humans change their mind, their reality changes. So suddenly you go, of course the earth is round. Who's been saying the earth is flat, And suddenly all of humanity goes, yes, the earth is round. We accept it. But once upon a time we believed the earth was flat. So he came along at a very poignant moment in my life where I just started to become aware of meditation, of not so much practicing yoga, but a curiosity about yoga and meditation. How can you sit and close your eyes every day and as a result become happier, more intelligent, more clear, more strong, more creative? How is that? So for somebody who's educated in the West with a scientific background, how can, by closing your eyes, how can you change your physical reality? Doesn't make sense. Not from what we're taught. So that was a crack through which came the light. And that led from one thing to the next. So the curiosity about meditation led to curiosity about yoga, and that led to curiosity about the environment, led to curiosity about diet. So starting to see the whole picture, how everything is interconnected with everything else, right? But it wasn't a flash of, I wasn't run over by a bus, or it's a gradual awareness that comes. Some people have a near-death experience, or ingest a hallucinogenic or a plant, and then reality is shown to them. For me, it's been a gradual journey, and the journey is just beginning in many ways.
You're a very curious person.
I am now, because of this, because once you start to glimpse a much larger reality, a much deeper reality that's intrinsic within and without, it's natural that you become fascinated by consciousness and the human potential and the interconnectedness of the entire universe. And that's something that was missing in my education. There was no inspiration to want to learn, because you were given cold facts that you had to memorize, right? But if we can inspire children to naturally want to discover themselves, who doesn't want to discover themselves, right? So that was my eureka moment, and this was the very late 80s. And I've spoken about this extensively in Hong Kong, about the power of the year 1989 and how I shifted consciousness that year in the very early 90s. But yeah, that was my beginning in many ways, and it's been almost 30 years now.
Oh, it's great that you had that moment. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any this.
Otherwise, who knows, right? Otherwise, who knows? Anyway, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for
You're
sharing
welcome.
with me your moment. Love to know your story.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure having the social vegan.
the hidden face behind.
Yes. This is the face behind how many? 88 posts? 90 posts. More than 90 posts.
90 stories. I was shocked when I
So
counted.
by the time this is out, which will be a few months later, will be like 200 something by then.
Who knows? Yeah.
And on that note, Helen, so good having you. Thank you for coming.
having me.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Until soon.